So, John, I want to be
Tim.
honest with our listeners. This is our third episode of Seti Bimco.
Okay.
And we did film, I'll say film because there's pictures, a first episode. And if you remember, halfway through the first episode, it caught fire and several children lost their lives.
It was tragic. I don't want to talk about it. I'm still emotionally scarred by it. And
So if you start a podcast at home, it's good to do a practice run.
And don't have children around.
But I think a few of those children were faking it. But anyway.
You think they were faking that?
Yes.
It's the Seti Bimco Show with your hosts, John and Tim. This week, John gets top billing because it's John History Month.
Anyway, this is the podcast, Seti Bimco. My name's Tim.
And I'm John.
And it's a podcast where we look back at high school calamities. We're going to interview a few people starting next week. In fact, I'm very excited. And when we're not interviewing people, we're going to talk about some pop culture, usually albums and movies from our bygone era. And later this episode, we're going to talk about what, John? The movie you picked.
We're going to talk about Exorcist II, the Heretic.
Right.
And if I may just interject here, Tim today texted me, laughing emoji. How can we describe this movie in one sentence? And I said I could describe it in one word, and that is why, as in, why was this film made?
Well, money. But we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. How has your week gone since I last spoke with you, Tim?
My week? Well, up here, we're in two different geological places. I know you're up where...
I'm going to say I'm in Auburn, New York.
That's fine.
Which is outside of Syracuse.
You're in a recording studio in Auburn.
I'm in a state-of-the-art recording studio.
I don't know if you hear any piano on my end. I think next door, Billy Joel is working on some new songs. But can you hear that? Oh, no, it's done.
I cannot hear it. I cannot hear that. How is Billy doing these days?
It's his bedtime, I think. That's why he's done playing.
You know, I waited on him once in Provincetown when he was still married to Christy Brinkley. I did. Very nice guy. Good tipper.
When did you live there? I didn't know you lived there.
The summer of 91. And I believe I saw you in that fall of 91 when I had just gotten back from Provincetown right before I moved to Raleigh.
Yeah, I think that's when we robbed the bank.
Right. And then we sort of kind of lost contact for...
Well, we had to. We didn't want to stay in one spot if we robbed the bank.
Exactly. We had to get out of the place that we will name one day.
What I was saying was up here on Saturday, it was 60 degrees and nice out. So, and Omicron is like plummeting, and we were able to get out and see some sunshine. And it was so nice out, I was finally able to watch episodes of the Great Canal Journeys without wearing a sweater.
It felt like you were actually on the canals, because I'm assuming they do that during the summer.
And if it's your first episode listening, I've been watching Great Canal Journeys with Prunella Scales and her husband Tim West, who are actors. John, this is synchronicity. Guess where they went to travel the canals this week?
Oh, I wouldn't even begin to guess, Tim.
Well,
did they go to anywhere near Bath?
No, synchronicity, John. They went to
Sting's house.
Sweden.
Oh.
And Sweden has big canals and big lakes. So as I was saying, it's sad that Prunella and Tim are very old, and they run their boats into other boats. They run into bridges. There was a big ABBA swimming party. I think they ran down half the members of ABBA.
Oh, wow.
It's great.
Were they in Sweden though?
Yeah. They go around.
A huge canal in Sweden called the Göta Canal.
They rented a boat.
Traveled not the entire length of it, but small segments of it.
Oh man.
And it basically goes from Göteborg to Stockholm, incorporating lakes and natural waterways, and they connect, which is basically what a canal was meant for. It was meant to connect natural waterways with man-made waterways to make the trip, in this case for commerce, go more quickly.
I would love to ride the canals. And as you can see,
one day we'll go to Sweden and ride the Göta Canal.
I would. You can see I got a haircut.
You did get a haircut. I am behind. I was saying how my only social life is going out and getting my haircut every 3 weeks, followed up with lunch and a couple of beers at the
Have you gone out
brew pub.
The whole pandemic? Did you get your haircut in public, or did you?
No, I had my hair in a ponytail. Yeah, I went basically from March of 2020. I had I had an appointment to get my hair cut. It was either 2 or 3 days after the lockdown started.
Okay.
And that weekend, I was supposed to go down to Ithaca to go see Howard Jones. Remember the 80s musician?
Yeah.
He did a lot of synth music. Well, now he does those songs on the synthesizer. He does them acoustically.
Really?
And I was supposed to go to that Saturday. Lockdown started that Tuesday.
Remind me of one of his songs, just so I can remember. Howard Jones. I know he had a big...
Things Can Only Get Better.
Yes.
Life in One Day. No One Ever Is to Blame. No one ever is to blame.
I don't remember that one, but I remember Howard Jones.
Yes.
I remember
This is your producer, Miss Lee. We don't have a budget for licensing music. You cannot be singing Howard Jones songs.
And forgive my singing.
Well, my wife has been cutting my hair the whole pandemic. That's what happened this weekend. She cut my hair.
Well, it looks very becoming.
She does a very good job, and she said the back of my head had 2 lumps, which...
oh, dear.
No, not to worry about. She just said my head is shaped funny, which, that's grounds for divorce.
Is it really? In New York State, I think you're right. It's one of those old laws from like 1892, and they just never took it off the books.
That's a law from like...
That and you can't park your horse outside a supermarket.
1982. I could have her declared a witch for talking about my head that way.
I do have a lump in the back of my head, too. I think, doesn't that have something to do with the endocrine gland? I don't know.
That's your extra brain chamber. If one gets too filled up with ABBA facts, the other brain chamber can be used to protect yourself against predators.
And you have 2, and I only have 1. Well, what does that tell you right there?
Which reminds me, when you talked about ABBA, our producer, Miss Lee, she was reminding me that you talked about there was a fishery, fish cannery in Sweden called ABBA. And I asked you, did they have to sue each other? And you kind of glazed over that. And I was like, why was there a fish cannery named ABBA and then a band named ABBA? Was there any problems?
And listening back to that,
don't apologize.
That first episode, I didn't finish my thought on that. I had so many thoughts going through my head. I was trying to get a lot of information out in a limited amount of time, knowing that we're
on fire.
Well, we have a few time constraints.
Children were dying.
There is a fish cannery called ABBA in Sweden, and ABBA were 4 very successful musicians in Scandinavia. And when they got together, they went by their 4 names. Well, that was a little long, trying to fit all that on a record label.
I see, yeah.
So the record company asked the public, as part of a contest, to rename the band.
Oh, all right. I gotcha.
And so somebody came up with the name ABBA, which was the acronym of the first letters of each name. And everybody's like, that's a great idea. That's fantastic. And, whoa, wait a second. We're going to have to talk to the fish cannery people. And the fish cannery people were fine with it. They just said, don't be like the Stones or the Who and, be trashing hotel rooms and getting high and
killing band members in swimming pools.
Your nose is clean. Yes. Getting murdered in swimming pools. Of course, they didn't have a drummer per se, so I guess they didn't have that issue.
It's a socialist, borderline communist country, so it's fine. How was your week?
Very uneventful.
Well, did it stay 22 degrees up there?
It's been in the single digits for the last 2 days, but it's supposed to go back up to 50 by Thursday, which is the first day of my vacation. Basically, this week has been gearing up for going on my 6-day vacation. Whoa. I'm not going anywhere. I didn't want to make any plans.
Yeah, you didn't tell me. I don't know who's going to fill in for you.
Oh, I will still be here. I will still be here. I will from my cabana in Cabo. I will be broadcasting live.
Right.
Yes, I will make that sacrifice for my art. I did have to explain to somebody today. Somebody was asking about favorite candy, and I said, "Well, of course, my favorite candy is the crack of all candies, the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup."
Okay.
I think that's just the greatest candy. And somebody said, well, I don't really like chocolate and peanut butter together.
Oh my God.
And I said, well, see, that was the selling point of the commercial in the 70s. Do you remember?
Did you slap him?
No, I didn't slap him because I understand people don't like certain tastes. But I said, I think that was the point they were trying to get across in the commercials in the 70s, because do you remember the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup commercial in the 70s, Tim?
Yeah.
Where it would be one person walking down the street with a candy bar and one person walking down the street with a jar of peanut butter. You do.
I know.
Like you do, and they would collide.
Well.
And the chocolate would go into the jar of peanut butter, and the one person would say, "Hey, you got peanut butter on my chocolate," and the other person would say, "You got chocolate on my peanut butter," and then they both take a bite at the same time and discover.
Well, John, in the 70s, everybody was high, so they were just walking around with open jars of peanut butter.
Peanut butter. Well, I remember my mother sending me out, going, "You go out. It's a nice day.
Play with your jar of
peanut butter, so you don't have to come home for lunch."
They had jars of everything.
Go.
Jars of mayonnaise.
Although I will say to this day, if you've ever been a poor college student, a starving actor, a starving artist.
Oh, yeah.
I always keep a jar of peanut butter, and I always keep a couple cans of tuna.
No, saltine crackers, John.
And you will never go hungry.
But yes, everybody was high in the 70s. Walking down the street with the open jar of mayonnaise. Another guy's walking down the street with a hot dog. They run into each other.
They run into each other and go, "Hey, you got hot dog in my mayonnaise.
Yes.
You got mayonnaise on my hot dog." And they're like, "This isn't so hot."
No. Well, what kind of candy did they like? Did they tell you? Or did I miss that?
You know what? After that, I find myself, I kind of tune out lately. I just sort of like, I give my 2 cents worth, and then they stop talking about me. It's like, I really don't care.
Those people,
you're not talking about me anymore. It's not about me anymore. I just tune out.
If a person doesn't like chocolate and peanut butter, you have to cut those people out of your life. They're like the barnacles on a boat. You have to cut off so that you can succeed. I don't know.
Barnacles in my life, yes. What is wrong with you?
So we'll move on to this movie that John wanted to watch, which I admit I never saw.
Exorcist I was going to ask you if you've ever seen it.
I think it was on TV when I was young, and I actually thought, this looks pretty terrible after 20 minutes.
And it was edited. And it's no better and you were right. And as I was watching it again, I sort of thought, why did I pick this movie? Because there is just, first of all, so much going on in it.
Well, listen.
There's so much going on in it.
I will say it had a lot of pretty good special effects. He put money into a lot of, nice photography of that locust, which we saw an hour of flying, I think. He did a lot of good special effects.
Was that a biblical reference? I don't know.
Oh, well, you give your one. Are you going to give your 1 sentence synopsis of this movie before we start talking?
Well, I think we have to set up, and we don't want to get too much into the original film.
Well,
but
you set it up a little bit.
And this may answer the question of why this film was made. And I am not going to say probably, I am not going to say perhaps. I can say with confidence that The Exorcist is the greatest horror film ever made.
Probably. Maybe
there's no probably, Tim. There's no probably, there's no perhaps. It is the greatest. This was so huge.
I know. Rosemary's Baby.
Rosemary's Baby would be a close second. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Rosemary's Baby would be a close second. But when you add in the special effects they used in the first movie, even though it was a different director,
right?
The bed and getting pulled against the wall and slammed up against this, there was a lot more action in The Exorcist than there was Rosemary's Baby. Rosemary's Baby was an excellent film. Excellent film. Fantastic story. Based on a novel by Ira Levin. The original Exorcist was based on a novel by William Peter Blatty.
Yes, because he fought
The Exorcist in 1973. In 1973, made $165 million. Do you know how many movie tickets you had to sell in 1973 to make $165 million?
And it cost $3 to go to the movies back then.
Yeah.
Sadly.
So I was like, why did this? Well, they wanted to make some money. And they got an excellent cast for it. Richard Burton.
He needed to pay for his divorce from Elizabeth
Which
Taylor.
One was this? The second divorce.
The second divorce.
The second divorce from but you know what? That's okay, because sometimes when you talk to an artist or an actor or some creative person, they say, "Oh, I would never, or I have never sold out my art or my craft for any amount of money," to which I respond, they just haven't written you a big enough check yet. There's nothing wrong with making a few dollars.
No.
Do you agree, Tim? There's nothing wrong with making some money off of your talent.
For those at home who don't know, I've drawn comic books, and I've done some books I didn't care to do because, well, I had to pay the rent.
You got to eat. Guys got to eat. Yep. And sometimes you want more than peanut butter and tuna fish.
Right. Peanut butter and chocolate.
And chocolate or mayonnaise or whatever. But anyway, Ellen Burstyn, who played Chris, the mother in the original movie, wanted nothing to do with it.
Nope. Linda Blair did not want to wear the makpermakeup. She refused to wear the makeup
again. They had to use a double. They had to use a double to put the makeup on her.
They refused permission to film at any of the original sites. The staircase, everything that had to be built
because of the notoriety of the original film.
I don't know. I just read that they were refused all this. It's a pain to let. I don't know if that was a real house they filmed at, but I know people who in the city have allowed their house to be used for filming, and afterwards they're like, "Well, they broke everything. I mean, they paid to use my house, but
I have heard that too.
Everything was busted.
I've also heard, don't let your house out to the president or the vice president because all those people coming in and out, the Secret Service, the aides, the staff, your house is trashed. So don't let them make a movie in it. Don't let an elected official stay in your house is what I've heard.
It'll be bugged forever.
And it'll be bugged forever.
Yes.
And so, I guess we'll just get into the film. Do you want to get into the film, or is there anything you wanted to add to?
No. I just wanted to just say it stars Linda Blair. She's in this. They don't explain a lot at the beginning of the film, but she seems to be in an institute that is helping young people. She's being helped by a psychiatrist or psychologist, I forget which, and a priest. Again, this movie is very unclear. A priest is sent to investigate her case. Is that what you say was happening? And this movie kind of sets up the contest between religion and science because
exactly
the psychologist played by Louise Fletcher. Yes, she unfortunately always seems to play these roles of a very it's not a good depiction of professional woman, and I feel bad for her. She later went on. I don't know. You're not a Trekkie, are you?
Is it a Trekkie or a Trekker?
Well, I don't care, but
okay. Because I have heard the correct term is Trekker, and that if you call them Trekkies, they get very offended. I don't know.
I like Star Trek.
Okay, you don't care. That's what I like to hear, Tim.
But on the show Deep Space Nine, she plays actually a religious Vedic who of a part of a religion that worships a wormhole, and she kind of plays the opposite character where she believes in the gods and is at odds with Starfleet, who believe in science. So she played a reoccurring role through that whole show, but she also. Again, she played a bit of a villain in a way. But anyway.
Well, and just on Louise Fletcher, and not to spend too much time on her, but she, if anybody is trying to picture her face in their head, Louise Fletcher won the Academy Award for Best Actress playing Nurse Ratched in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Right.
And that was sort of the pinnacle of her career. I personally thought she did this movie. She did a film version of Flowers in the Attic, which was this trashy novel that came out in the late 70s.
That every teenager read.
Some very poor career choices, I feel.
Well, if you see her in Star Trek, she did a good job there. But
I'm sure she did. Oh, she's a wonderful actress. I'm not saying anything about her acting ability. Her acting ability has always been top form. She just picks lousy material, or somebody's picking lousy material for her. So, but you were talking about you had a hard time figuring out how the setup of this movie was, because it almost seems like this movie is trying to undo or contradict the first movie.
It was,
and basically why Father Lamont is coming. The Richard Burton character is coming up. He has been down in South America performing an exorcism,
right,
on a girl who claims that she can heal the sick. Max von Sydow, great Swedish actor, while we're talking about Sweden, played Father Marin in the original film. Father Marin, spoiler alert, dies of a heart attack in the first film. So the premise of Richard Burton coming up to the United States from South America is that the church wants, they say they want an investigation of the events that led up to Marin's death, but what they want to do is they want to keep it under wraps. So they don't want this getting out.
It was just unclear what Linda Blair was up to. She was tap dancing. Was she tap dancing the first time we saw her? The second time, and I was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah. It was very surreal. I think I can use that word with confidence.
Right, because she was tap dancing later, and I figured out, this is part of this school or institute, because I saw the other children in the audience, and I realized, they're putting on a show. The kids are doing the show. Doesn't have much to do with the plot.
Yeah, well, the thing about this film was, Some of it was present time, some of it was flashback, and some of it was hallucination.
Yes.
And it's very difficult to keep track of what is what in this movie.
Because they wanted to use some leftover film from the first movie is what was happening.
And hence Max von Sydow being in the movie.
Right.
They have him in the credits, in the acting credits, but he's only in the one scene.
Right.
And that could have been, as you said, that could have been filmed in the first movie.
Mm-hmm. I think it was.
Maybe it was. And yeah, and it was just really strange. Did you notice, though, they call it The Exorcist II, but there is not an exorcism there's no exorcism in this movie.
Well, the woman at the beginning, and where are they? Are they in Africa? The woman who gets set on fire.
The beginning, they're in South America. They go to
South
Africa
America
later.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was exorcising her, but she burst into flames. Again, unclear.
Well, and see, this is where I get confused about the movie, because I got reading about it, and Borman wanted to have a more positive film than the original.
Not hard.
A difficult time. So basically what it was this girl claimed she could use her powers to heal the sick. But it was unclear, did she get the powers from Satan, or did she have the powers and then Satan tried to take control of her powers? I was unclear on that.
Yes.
It's like with Reagan, when she's in the waiting room I guess she's waiting to talk to the doctor, Louise Fletcher, Dr. Tuscan, and there's an autistic child who doesn't speak.
That's Dana Plato.
I was going to ask.
Dana Plato from
little girl.
Different Strokes.
Different Strokes. What you talking about, Willis? Well, and again, this is the confusing part about it. So these people had these powers and using them for good, or did Satan give them the powers and they chose to use them for good, and Satan was thinking, oh no, we can't have any of that, using it for good.
But this doctor created this lamp, type of lamp that doesn't work right. It just flickers on and off, and it needs a lampshade. You know what I'm talking about. And leather straps that go over your head.
The synchronizer.
I know.
Because she doesn't want the priest talking to Reagan.
But it was just
But they can exchange brain waves.
But it was a lamp that blinked lights.
Not all the special effects were a home run in this movie.
No.
In general, they were very good.
Well, could have
worked on the synchronizer a little more.
When that man fell off the cliff, I was like, wow, you spent a lot of money. We saw him fall from above. We saw him fall from the side. Do you remember in Africa?
It was a very slow fall, wasn't it? It was like fall already. That
led to something that was kind of pretty common back then, when the priest, Richard Burton, a white man, as most of you know, he shows up where this African man fell. And they're like, yeah, he fell. We can't find his body. We don't know. We climb these cliffs all the time. We can't find his body. And Richard Burton's like, okay, I'll climb down these cliffs. I look like I do this all the time. And he climbs down the cliff and he's like, well, here's the body. I'm a white man. I showed you how to find this body. Here it is. And they're all freaking out that he found the body. It's easy to point these things out, that things age badly, but there was a lot of that in this film, where they went to find James Earl Jones, and like he had the answers for them. Well, kind of. I still don't know what his answer was, but he was creating locusts with good wings to rub the wings of the bad locusts. But I'm getting ahead of myself.
Well, no, you're not really getting ahead of yourself, because this is how this movie is. That you're bouncing back and forth. Kokumo, is that how you pronounce the name? The character James Earl Jones played?
I believe
as a young boy, he's healing powers, but the locusts took him over.
But I really like the shot where they were flying the plane with Ned Beatty. Again, another good effect. And they're spraying DDT, and it sprays in the windshield like blood. Then after it comes out the windshield, they're in a different place. They're kind of in a dream. I think that's where Richard Burton ends up in a dream and has to walk on nails to talk to James Earl Jones.
Yes, and again, that's where it gets so confusing. It's like, is this actually happening? Is this a hallucination? Is this the flashback?
Well, that was a dream, but I don't know how
was a dream. Yeah,
I don't know how he got to the professor's office. Who was he? I don't know what he was. A scientist who was working on the locust anyway.
Yeah, I'm thinking there were a lot of scenes that were cut in this film. I'm sure there were probably scenes filmed that actually kind of made that a more natural progression, but probably just wound up.
But if I can back up to the beginning, when the priest first meets Linda Blair, She drew a crazy picture of the priest on fire. And he's like, look at this picture she drew of me. And the nurse is like, yeah, she's really good, huh? It's like, no, I'm on fire.
I'm on fire. That's not right. That's not good.
He runs
fire
to the basement.
Bad.
He runs right past, I backed up the film. He runs right past a fire extinguisher to the fire, starts beating on it with I think it's a crutch, and he spreads it everywhere until Louise Fletcher goes over and gets the fire extinguisher. Anyway, Regan seems to live in a penthouse. Again, I'm unsure. Do you remember in the first movie, is her family super rich? Because in this movie,
an actress.
Okay, she lives in a very nice penthouse, which I read is actually the top of the Warner Brothers building because, again, they couldn't get permission to film where they wanted to, so they filmed on top of the Warner Brothers office because she lived,
which was the studio that produced the film. Yes.
Yeah. Because her balcony had big gaps where you could like walk off the edge of the building if you noticed, which he almost did, but no balcony would look like that.
No balcony you'd let a child on for sure.
No. Well, hey, she's an adult. She must have been. She looked like an adult.
16. Yeah. At 15, 16, I wouldn't have been let on balconies. No, they didn't trust me yet.
No,
I would have done something crazy.
Were you walking around with open cans of peanut butter on balconies?
I was walking around with open cans of peanut butter and/or mayonnaise, depending on what I had my hands on. Seeing somebody on the street with a bar of chocolate falling off the balcony, landing on them. And then I said, hey, you got chocolate in my peanut butter. I forgot how bad this movie was. And I just want to kind of back up here because I hadn't seen the original Exorcist until I was about 19 years old.
Okay. Probably me too.
Well, we were 7 when this movie came out. There was no way they were going to take us to see.
No.
At least my parents wouldn't have. I'm sure, your parents wouldn't have, Tim.
No.
Although I'm sure there were some parents out there who did take their kids to.
Well, listen, I started buying comic books in 5th grade, and I went to a rummage sale, and I found a comic called Son of Satan, published by Marvel. Believe it or not, there was a comic called Son of Satan. Back in those days, you had to get a script out every month for a book. And one of the scripts for Son of Satan, and the book is what it sounds like. It's a man who's the son of Satan. And they basically took the script of The Exorcist and did it in that comic book. And I remember reading that, and it was a pretty good artist, Gene Colan, and he did the whole thing where the man was possessed by son of Satan's father, and he was tearing at his flesh on his face. And I remember being a bit creeped out by that as a 5th grader. So I kind of read The Exorcist in comic book form in 5th grade, and it freaked me out. And you're about to say something?
I'm about to say something because I don't want to talk over you.
That's fine.
But Tim, you said the son of Satan's father. Wouldn't the son of Satan's father be Satan?
Yeah. That's why I was...
Okay, there. I just wanted to be clear on that.
I thought that was obvious.
It's like the father of the son of Godzilla.
Son of Satan's father.
Godzilla. I'm sorry.
That's how my brain works. Yeah. I of course didn't see this till it was probably on TV. I don't know how much they edited out of The Exorcist on TV.
Probably a lot. I hadn't seen this until I saw it on VHS. And even though I could not go and see the movie, as we were saying before, because we were 7 years old and our parents were actually responsible and wouldn't have taken us to a movie like The Exorcist, you were aware of The Exorcist.
Yes.
Whether it be a comic book about the son of Satan or a parody on Saturday Night Live.
Yes.
It was this is how big this film was, that it was just in the collective consciousness. It was in pop culture. Even if you've never seen the movie, you know about The Exorcist. You know about the pea green soup vomit. You know about, and I'm guessing that's why they said, well, we have to make a sequel. And it was a business decision, I'm sure. But again, back to my initial question, why?
Well,
just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right, I agree. And they tried to make the ending this action chase scene, which it was like a train versus an airplane. And they did a nice special effects with the airplane again in the sky. I'm saying it was like 10-second shot. They were in I forget who was on what. She was on a train with the priest who seemed to be possessed by the devil, maybe. And Louise Fletcher was in an airplane. They still arrived in Washington at that house about the same time. Maybe a few minutes difference. They fought for the taxi. I was watching. I was like, people don't actually always fight for the taxi. There's usually someone there to line you up. In this movie, it was like almost a brawl to get the taxi. Poor taxi driver, I think he died getting to that house, and they didn't give a damn. Did they show him dead? Did I look away? Because I was watching.
He did. I don't know if they. No, he died. He was dead.
Okay, because I thought
he was dead. Yeah, he was not walking away from it, but they walked away no problem.
Well, somewhat.
Well, other than one another one caught on fire.
They spent a lot of money destroying that house, that set. None of the neighbors noticed it. Yes,
the locusts again.
Again, it could have been a different movie if they weren't so obsessed with recreating the first movie, because they had to get back to that house, back to that bedroom, back to that bed.
Why not just make a movie about that and don't even bother calling it Exorcist II? Just like make an entirely different movie.
She could have had an army of possessed kids in that school. I think that would have been much more exciting.
That would have been. It would have been a great film. They'd be teaching it in universities right now.
Are you going to talk about your connection to exorcisms or not?
Yes, I am.
And you can change the name.
I'm just not going to mention the name.
Okay. But John,
which means I can't use the nickname that we came up with him as kids.
Is that litigious to use the nickname?
It could be. And I'm going to say it right now, Tim. I'm going to give you a little bit of a space here so it'll be easier to edit out. His name was Father. We called him Father Labor.
You can probably say that, but I don't know. You decide.
I don't know, because when I was looking him up on Google,
cool. Okay,
it came up about the sexual accusations.
Okay, so
if you were a victim of the priest, if you were a victim of sexual abuse from Father,
so what are we going to call
contact
him?
This law firm.
Maybe our producer has an idea. Do you have an idea what to call this priest?
This is your producer, Miss Sleep. Figure this out on your own. Someone got hot dog in my jar of mayonnaise, and it tastes great.
I would say Father X.
Okay.
Like Planet X.
All right.
We don't have a name for it. We'll come up with it later.
Father X. I'm not editing it in later.
Well, yeah. So as I said, we had this very boring priest.
Okay.
And I would have had, I don't know if I would have had respect for him, but I would have, having known his entire resume, I may have looked at him in a different light.
Well, John, let's back up. Why do you know this? So who are we talking about, and why do you know this priest?
Okay, we're talking about a priest who was at.
You don't have to name the school, but
a local Catholic church. I had a great aunt from Park Slope. She came from a very wealthy family in Park Slope, and she went to this church. So when I would go visit her, I would have to go to Mass with her on Sunday. And this priest was the pastor, the head priest of this particular church. But that was not his full resume. He was also not just but the lead exorcist for the Archdiocese of New York.
Okay.
I didn't even know there was such a thing.
I didn't either. I'm fascinated.
I did not know either. Well, fasten your seatbelts. Fast forward to about 1991, and I don't recall seeing this, but it was on 2020. They actually filmed an exorcism that he performed in
Was it live?
Was it a psychiatric hospital in Louisiana?
This will be a sad story, I'm sure.
Well, I'm not going to get into that, but anyway, they filmed him doing the exorcism with the total blessing of the Archdiocese. I said, sure, yeah, go ahead, because I'm sure 2020 ABC paid a pretty good chunk of change.
They'll treat it with respect.
Yes. Well, there was a lot of backlash on it, and I personally feel rightfully so. I don't think that was the most appropriate thing to film. I would call into question the ethics of the Archdiocese. I would call into question the ethics of ABC News to actually air this. Again, the old adage, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
He walked in there with an open jar of peanut butter. And
with an open jar of peanut butter.
She had
the little girl they were performing it, had a bar of chocolate.
Yes. I'm trying to stick these jokes in here.
Yes. And then, yes, because we need more jokes in this. So he was the lead Exorcist 4. I will talk about, though, you know how we're talking about these embarrassing moments from being raised.
I'll remind you that, but was he your teacher? I mean, you met him?
He was a religion teacher. This is what I'm getting to.
Okay.
He was a religion teacher at the Catholic high school. I went for my freshman year, the year before I moved to our little town.
Okay.
And met you the next year in sophomore year.
All right. So I interrupted you. Sorry.
So we were coming out of, we were in the locker room and we were getting change out of our gym clothes back into our school uniforms to go to our next class. And it was always a rush to get changed. And he comes barging into the locker room. The religion teacher, why the religion teacher is doing this, I have no clue. And yells at the top of his lungs, "You all smell like cattle. You all better take showers before you get out of this locker room. You are not going back into the school smelling like a bunch of cattle." And he stood there and watched us all shower.
Yikes.
Which at the time I thought was very creepy.
Yeah.
A, why is the religion teacher monitoring showers in the locker room and watching a shower room full of 15, 16, and 17-year-old boys showered? Right. Yeah. And then, going through and Googling him and, finding this piece that ABC News did, and then going down 3 items and, oh, yeah, by the way, if you were a victim of sexual abuse from father, contact this law firm. Which is why I'm not mentioning his name, because I know. He is no longer with us. He is long gone.
Oh, okay. So you don't have to worry.
Maybe in Africa, fighting locusts. I don't know.
I thought you meant he died.
No, that's what I mean. He's no longer with us.
So I don't think you have to worry. But
I don't have to worry about anything. I know, but
unless his children.
I also don't want to publicize.
No,
unless his children are out there. Oh my gosh, his secret life. Now we're just writing a Lifetime movie.
No, I wish I'd watched that special in preparation for this, but it's probably sad, right? I think I saw a clip of it, and am I right in assuming the girl being exorcised seemed like she might have been mentally handicapped?
Yeah, I think it might have been. And it was so very good. And this kind of ties back to, you were talking about the battle between faith and science in Exorcist II. In the beginning of the movie, Reagan has no recollection, the Linda Blair character has no recollection of the events of The Exorcist.
Oh, supposedly. But in one scene, when Dana Plato says, "Why are you in here?" she just says, "Oh, I used to be possessed by a demon." And I was like, wait, you don't remember this. You're not supposed to remember it.
Or somebody's told her enough times. I don't know. Or she's having an hallucination, but that was just it. So Louise Fletcher, Dr. Tuscan, is convinced that no, she's just had a mental breakdown. I think any of us would.
Yeah, she was probably playing Mazes and Monsters too much.
Mazes and Monsters
Call back.
Too much. Call back. Mazes and Monsters. She was playing Mazes and Monsters way too much. That was it.
Check out episode 2, listeners.
Go back to episode 2. I actually winced more at this movie than I winced at Mazes and Monsters. But I have seen this now. But I have seen Exorcist II Exorcist II: The Heretic.
Now, have you seen
times on VHS? Because as I was saying earlier, I didn't get to see the original Exorcist until I saw it on VHS when I was about 19, which would have been 12 years later after the movie came out. I'd seen the original Exorcist on VHS. I was in the video store. So, Exorcist II: The Heretic. The first movie was awesome. And I thought, well, how can you go wrong with the sequel? So I rented it. And then a few years after that, a bunch of other friends had rented it. And I watched it again. And then the third time, I was out at a party or a gathering. I don't know if it was a party. It was a get-together. And this was down in Raleigh, and they had Exorcist II: The Heretic, and I said, "Oh, I've seen that movie a few times." And then they played it, and then got mad at me.
Yeah, why didn't you?
How can you like this movie? And I said, "I never said I liked it." Well, you've seen it 3 or 4 times. I was like, "Well, yeah, I wind up coming to these things, and it keeps turning up like herpes."
John, You said, why did John leave the room with a jar of peanut butter and come back 2 hours later? Why didn't you warn us?
Why didn't exactly? Why didn't you warn us? And I guess if I were in their shoes, I'd be mad at me too. Okay, now that you put it that way, Tim, you're absolutely right. I am a terrible person.
Isn't Blue Velvet a classic film? Don't you think? Blue Velvet by
David Lynch.
Yes. Don't you consider that?
Yes.
When I was first in New York, I did more running. I do more biking now. I used to do more running, and I did a New Year's midnight run where you run around Central Park. So I did that. You start the run at midnight. I was younger, went to a party. One of the people I knew, we went back to where he lived, which was down the street from the Dakotas. And what they had, it was like 4 of us, they had a projection TV and all these movies. And they were like, what should we watch? And I said, they got Blue Velvet. And they're like, what's that? And I'm like, you never saw Blue Velvet? They're like, no. So we watched Blue Velvet. And then they're like, why did you tell us to watch this terrible movie? What was that about? How could four people stare at me with my jar of peanut butter and be like, what are you talking about? And then they
all I can say is, Tim, maybe you should be more selective of who you hang out with.
Throw their chocolate at me. Yeah, I never saw those people again.
I'm really reevaluating our relationship here because how do they not like Blue Velvet? I mean, you'd think at least 1 or 2 of them.
Yes.
Like it.
Anyway,
no,
that's a rabbit hole.
What I should have done with the VHS tape of Exorcist II and The Heretic was I should have ripped it out of the person's hand before they put it in the player, just ripped all the tape out of the cartridge, and destroyed it and say, I have done you the biggest favor of your life.
Did you lose those friends? Were they acting friends?
I don't know if they were so much friends as they were coworkers.
Oh,
I was working in the restaurant business at the time. It was one of those things where you've never waited tables, but anybody who's ever waited tables, and you get out of work at 10, 11, sometimes midnight if you've had a closing shift.
Right.
And you're wide awake, and it's a Friday night, and you go and you have some beers or maybe smoke a couple joints, and because you're in college, and you let people put in VHS copies of Exorcist II, The Heretic, because your judgment is off, because you're tired and you're drunk and you're stoned. And so, no, I wouldn't say they were I was very fond of them. They were very nice people, but they were more coworkers than.
True. Coworkers are a different breed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, well, when you sign your yearbook, we'll be friends forever. Lifelong friends. And I look at it and I think, I don't remember who this person is.
Coworkers are, they never work out. My first job in New York City in an office it was graphic arts related. My first week there, I was doing what other people told me to do because I was new. I was at the bottom of the rung. And this guy, he came around one day. He's like, that project we're working on? Can you give me all the information you have on it? I need all that information. You have a server, as most people know today. You just drop it in a folder. I'm like, sure, I got to do what I'm told. Here's all the information on this project. Next day, he's not at work. People are running around like their pants are on fire. And they eventually get to me and they're like, did you talk to Mr. Jones? I'll just call Mr. Jones yesterday. I'm like, yeah. He asked for all the information on this project. I'm like, he got a job. He got a job elsewhere. And he just stole all the information on our project, which he's going to take to the competing graphic arts studio. It was pharmaceutical advertising, by the way, which is big money. But, I felt bad, but also I'm like, I'm new here. I'm just doing what I'm told. But they were like, he went into people's computers who weren't there and took their stuff. I wasn't like the worst case, but.
So this is like corporate espionage.
Yeah. So.
Wow. Do we know whatever happened to Mr. Jones? Did he get, do you think he deserved, did he get punished for it?
I don't know what happened to any of those people. That's like, they came and went. There was one day a woman came in to substitute. She went into the office down the hall from me that this man worked in. It was his office, but if you go on vacation and they have a lot of work, they'll hire a substitute. They come into the office. And she eventually came out of the office. I heard her talk to the IT man. She's like, can you help me? I keep trying to open up work files, but all I'm getting is porn. Porn here. There's porn in this file. There's porn films in that file.
Welcome to the art world, man. No. What you call porn, we consider art. No, that's porn. You're right. That's porn.
And one day they just came in and like walked the whole IT department out because they had been buying equipment for themselves using the corporate credit card. So it's like pharmaceutical.
This was a real shady company you worked for.
Well, it's pharmaceutical advertising, which is millions of dollars spent on a logo alone. So, I printed my portfolio there for free and I went and erased the records because back then you needed physical pieces of artwork to show other people to get jobs. So anyway, I don't mention their name though.
Don't mention their name. Now, was this at the World Trade Center?
No. I never. I never worked there. No.
I don't know why I thought you worked at the World Trade Center. Maybe that was somebody else.
I had friends there who they lived. They did fall out of their chair when the plane hit. They're like, "What happened? Why did I fall out of my chair?" But they got out.
The plane just hit the building. Good.
Yeah. It wasn't a great place to work. But let's get back to anyway. You had religious classes with the top exorcists.
With the top exorcist, and he watched us all take a shower after gym class. And
okay.
Basically, the gist of that story, Tim.
I'm just curious what his class was like.
Milk that out more.
He didn't have any he just had the regular religious class, nothing special.
Yeah, he read out of the catechism.
Right.
We're going to burn in hell. Basically, everything you're going to burn in hell for.
Okay. Well, I didn't know if he was a fun guy.
No.
Because we had a priest.
No. Hence his nickname. I mentioned his nickname earlier.
Oh, man.
No, he was not a barrel of laughs.
Of course he's bored teaching you. He's exorcising demons. I mean, the rest of his life is exciting and amazing. When we were in grade school, Catholic school, our priest, he at least was fun, except he was the one, I don't know if they did this to you, he handed out your report card. And you would walk up to the desk and he would look at your report card while everybody else is sitting quietly, looking at you. And he'd be like, "What's happened here? This isn't a good grade." And you're like, stand up there sweating in front of everybody because he's basically shaming you. And then someone else goes up and, he's like, "Whoa, nice grades for whatever." And that was my nightmare I think that was 3 times a year, 4 times a year. I forget. But
oh no, we had the priest who, and this was a different priest. We had the priest who would actually read the grades out.
Oh, really? To the whole class?
To the whole class.
Wow.
And then get to and I hate to say the stupid kid, but it was the stupid kid, and say, it'd be like D in this, D in that, D in that, but a B in religion, and that's the grade that matters.
Wow. We got off the track here. Richard Burton as a priest. I guess we should say it's Valentine's Day, and I'm here filming my podcast. So my wife is packing her suitcase, and tomorrow I'll be single.
I was just going to say, is she leaving you? She's leaving you.
Talking to you is more important.
More important than your marriage. Well, Tim, that is the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
But
I don't know. I should have gotten you something for Valentine's at least.
We did forget.
Since I broke up your marriage.
Did you watch The Exorcist III?
I did not.
Because I hear it's better.
Because I think, I saw The Exorcist, which I loved, and I saw The Exorcist II, and then I thought, well, do I really need to see Exorcist III? Now,
I haven't seen the third one, but people seem to like that. I can assume.
Neither have I.
Well, Exorcist II, they took Louise Fletcher's light bulb machine. They took it to a hotel of ill repute, from what I can tell, and they left it there. So, who knows what happened?
Who knows what happened? The door is wide open.
That machine, those flashing lights.
Some transient person rented the room the next night.
Yes, some transient person who had.
You keep calling it the light bulb machine, Tim. Please use the correct term.
What is it?
Synchronizer.
All right. Some transient came in there the next day with his jar of peanut butter.
I want to, from the bottom of my heart, sincerely apologize for forcing you to watch this film. I knew it was a bad film, but I didn't realize how bad. And I'm going to be quite honest with you. I'm getting one of those little headaches above my eye.
Oh, no.
Just because there's so much going on in this movie.
You got to put. You got that one extra brain chamber. You can put that information back there. And I've got. Well, see, I've got the two chambers.
Two like you. I know. See, maybe that's why. Maybe that's why you're handling it better than I.
All right, John. I've enjoyed talking about this movie. I guess I'm picking. Oh, well, actually, next week we're going to have a guest. I'm not going to say who in case this person drops out, as people sometimes do, but we're going to interview them about their high school experience. This has been SETI BIMCO, and you can send us emails if you have anything to say to setibimco@gmail.com. It's spelled SETI BIMCO with an E after the O. I don't know why we did that. You can follow us on Twitter @SETIBIM. It's SEDDYBIM. And I finally got an Instagram. We got an Instagram.
Yay!
Which is SETI_BIMCO. SEDDY_BIMCO. The C stands for communist.
C stands for communist. The O stands for operative.
The S stands
Thank you, comrade.
S stands for synchronizer. I got that now.
The S stands for Stalin. The E stands for everybody give up your money.
I want to reshoot the scene where they are actually using the synchronizer, and the priest will have a jar of peanut butter, and Linda Blair will have a chocolate bar in her hand. I'm just going to cut what they're holding in their hands.
And then suddenly they will have those weird, they're cutting the close-ups back and forth, and then suddenly at the end, they're both holding Reese's peanut butter cups. And get the Reese's peanut butter cup people to pay for the product placement.
Which here, we're done with the episode, but that reminds me, the doctor, Louise Fletcher, was having a hard time using the synchronizer, and the priest, again, Richard Burton, he's just like, give me that thing. I know how to use this. And he straps on the leather strap on his head. Yeah, there was a leather strap you put on your head also with these blinking lights. He was an expert at using the synchronizer. He was an expert at finding dead bodies that fell off cliffs. He was an expert at,
coming into contact with people who spontaneously combusted.
Right.
SETI BIMCO is a podcast by Tim Hamilton and John Kelly, produced by Miss Lee, music by Tim Hamilton. This has been a Pity Party Line production.
Party line, it's a party line.